Everybody, I'm Chris Cuomo, and now it really is time to get after it. Everybody's rushing. Why? Breaking news. President Biden stepping away from the election. Okay, that's the news. Now it's time to slow down because a lot of what you're hearing in the media is way ahead of where the Democratic Party is. Now, part of that is the exigency of news. Everybody wants the information. They want the latest. Who's saying what? Who's getting behind Harris? Okay, it matters. But there are bigger questions, all right? I have the answers to some. I'll relay what I'm being told about the timing and the rationale for Biden stepping away now and about what and who comes next. Here's what I know. As of right now, nothing is settled. Harris, the vice president, has announced on Biden-Harris letterhead that she's pursuing the nomination. That's how fresh this all is. Will Harris get it? Everybody's saying yes, yes, yes. That's because that's what they want. But it is absolutely still a question. What I can't tell you is that President Biden is stepping away from the Democratic nomination as part of a plan. Biden is getting lauded by all corners, right? Lauded, however you want to say it, praised, lionized, like it's almost funereal, right? Like this is his memorial mass. That's because they killed him. They pushed him out, period. President Biden did not want to do this. So now what? Food for thought. Failing to plan is planning to fail. That is the answer to the most frequently asked question I get from Democrats, which is, how did we get here? Arguably, the primary process was fugazi for two reasons, and they're of equal weight in the Democratic Party. One, Biden was an incumbent. Second, just as much, because the people in positions of power in the administration and also elected officials wanted to keep it this way. So the plan made them the priority, not you, not picking the strongest candidate. So why now? Personally, I care least about this question because it happens. So what difference does it make? But the curiosity is all over the place, and the answer does have a little bit to do with the who, right? The how, which I've been talking to you about, how do the Democrats do this? That's been taken care of by Biden stepping away. So now you get to the who and the why, right? The tipping point for Biden was a combination. Critical mass of electeds coming at him. COVID, okay? He's sick. And the progressive left spooking donors, fundraisers, bundlers as they're called, and people in tight races that the polls are damning with Biden. Unless they change candidates, it's done, and it's going to be done deep, meaning big losses. Now, the change that has been suggested to move out Harris does not go hand in hand, to move out Biden does not go hand in hand with moving in Harris. That is part of what is not being said yet, at least not out loud. There are a lot of people who wanted to get rid of Biden who also do not want the nominee to be Vice President Harris, including people from Obama world. Now, I'm not saying that former President Obama himself is involved in that. I am saying that former President Obama has been grossly exaggerated as the driving factor up into this point. From here on, he may be more involved, but he was not the voice in Biden's ear, okay? He was not the driving force in this. Now, we'll see. I don't find his non-endorsement of Harris that telling. Why? Clinton did it. Others endorsed. They're not Obama. And there is a sensitivity to improving the party's position. And part of the problem in the party's position is that Biden was gifted the nomination. They don't want to repeat the same mistake and handicap Harris. Practically, that can't happen because whatever's going to happen will be made manifest at the convention. Do I think they'll have this settled before then? Probably. Same with who's going to be the VP. I'm sure if Harris is going to say that she wants to run with somebody, a couple other people may say they want to be the combination. Doesn't matter until we get to the convention. It matters who they say if they wind up being the choice, but it doesn't happen until the convention. So why are we assuming Harris? Well, first of all, because that's the critical mass in the media right now, but that can change. Remember what Felix Unger said about assuming? When you assume, you can make an ass out of you and me. Several reasons we are going down that path. How does the Democratic Party pass over a sitting vice president? It's been done, but rarely. How do they pass over a sitting vice president who is a black female, especially when the party has positioned itself the way it has on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion? Then there's the practicality. Biden's infrastructure likely most easily transfers to whom? Harris. A lot of them are her people. And the money, okay? There's about $90 million on hand or so in the Biden-Harris committee. Vice President Harris is the only one who qualifies for that money. So, is that a question or is that a certainty? We're going to answer it tonight. The money is probably her biggest advantage right now. Could the campaign give it to another, a PAC, if Harris isn't the pick? That's what we're going to argue again, because the money may matter most. Look, the pedigree is there, okay? Sitting VP, U.S. Senator, Attorney General. Harris is very compelling on her feet. She's from California. It's a big state. On paper, she checks a lot of boxes, okay? And I didn't mention her sex or her race in that paper analysis because you really shouldn't have to. Does it matter? That's up to the party, and it remains to be seen. We're going to hear a lot more now, though, about what we have been taking for granted, right? What have we heard? We have heard that Harris does better against Trump. Is that true? Well, now we're going to see. It's time to put meat on the bones. That takes me to the first of the two most important questions for me, okay? The first one for me is, as an aside, dismiss the term mini primary. There's no such thing. They blew the shot to test Biden against the field, and they may have lost their chance at their best candidate as a result. They're just referring to the amount of time between now and the convention, where everybody wants to be a player. It's going to be all over TV. They're going to have lots of different venues. It's going to be really good for you because you're going to get a lot more exposure to the process. And you're going to get to weigh in at a stage where you usually don't, right? This is usually dead for TV ratings in the late summer, and the campaign's kind of drifting. Not this time. All right. Here are my two questions, okay? Again, anything you hear happening before the convention, be suspicious. Now, if it's Harris, of course, it gets settled before the convention. Why? Well, she's an extension of Biden's campaign, so it's easier. Now, what is Harris's why? What's her rationale? I suggest that if it's enough to just be anybody but Trump, then, because that was the Democrats' rationale with Biden, right? But what was the problem? An offsetting negative for the Democratic ticket, which was that Biden's health. He doesn't seem to be competent. My question to you is, if Harris was as well received by as many as we're being told she will be, then why weren't the numbers better for Biden with her as the backstop? You got to think about that, right? So if it's anyone but Trump and I'm healthy, I'm 50-something years old, I'm not Biden, if that's her whole case, I think that's a problem. I think Harris is going to have to do something that Biden did not. She is going to have to talk to people about what she is for. What is the proposition that she can do for you? What is she for? Not just what and who is she against, not just which is worse. I think that's really important. All right. So that's the first question that I've been noodling on today. What are they going to do with that? Now, the second question for me is, because I also want to see, like, Harris does better than Biden against Trump. Show me. Show me her with all the different demographics. Show me her the plus minus. I was making notes for you guys tonight. Donald Trump being worse. It's not going to be enough. Then here's the big question, and there should be a lot of time and energy on this. And it may be part of the talk to you later this week that Biden put in his letter. The Republicans are misplaying this situation. Trump should have stayed quiet. Trump should not have said Biden is the worst president ever. One, other than Bill O'Reilly, nobody's going to agree with him, but also it is confirmation of what people don't like about him. And Trump is in an interesting place right now. He probably is the most liked he will be in this process because of how he braved an assassination attempt. I don't think he manifested the moment. I don't think he cemented it at the convention. I think he blew it, frankly, there. First 20 minutes, I thought, wow, he could change some minds. After that, same old Trump. He should stay quiet. Republicans calling for Biden to step down because if you can't run, then you can't serve. That's poppycock. They should be quiet right now. Oh, we're going to do the 25th Amendment. You got to have his cabinet members for that. This is silly. They're acting foolish. Okay? Pay attention to it. But here's the big question. I don't think he should be forced out by the right, but should Biden resign? He says no in the letter. I want to finish my work. He's not going to finish any work unless he sees that work as being a bridge to Harris and being a conciliator for the country right now, pulling in Republicans and Democrats and talking to them about how things need to be better. He could do that, but I don't know that he will. If he were to resign, what does that do for Harris? Well, obviously, she becomes president. Okay, let's think it through. So she becomes president. Now Trump is running against an incumbent again. She's got the incumbent effect. She's got the bully pulpit. We see her on the world stage. We see her taking on issues. What's the minus? The minus is now she has to own this administration's weaknesses. But doesn't she have to do that anyway as a VP? Would she have to own it more? Think about it. The big minus for me, if Biden were to resign and she were to assume the presidency, can she campaign enough to win from that position? Or will she be rightly chased by the right and the media for not doing the job? Tricky, tricky. But that is the question that I think is going to lead us into what Biden says later this week. But I'm telling you, let's not forget the Republicans. They better be heavy and be careful what we wish for mode, because they just chased out. And make no mistake, I don't care what you're hearing. I lived this, okay? And I've been talking to the people that wound up keeping me straight on where we were until this morning. All right? The right seeded this story that Biden was already out. That was not true. It's true now. So they had the right conclusion. Broken clock is right twice a day too, right? Right? You can have the right answer and have the wrong analysis for how we got here. But they seeded it, and you got to give it to the right for that. And the media picked it up after the debate, and there were a lot of nervous Democrats, and it gave them an opportunity, and the Democrats are uniquely susceptible to the media and suggestion, much more so than the right. And they decided to take out Biden. So now here we are, and they don't have a plan. Can that change? Yes. Do they have enough time? Yes. Does it have to manifest at the convention, and the convention must be open and crazy? No. We will discuss it. There is a wild card. Are they going to change the rules, or are you going to still just need 300 delegates to get onto the count at the convention? Because if you do that, you may have 5, 6 people who make that. Yeah, but they'll be the kooks and the fringes. I don't know. What does this mean for Bobby Kennedy? Could they bring him back in? He could make that litmus test, I bet you, of getting 300 delegates to get him into the race. Would he even consider that? Would you? Then you have Dean Phillips. Dean Phillips was the only one willing to take the heat to be in the primary against Biden. He never went after Biden. He said that Biden was too old and that he was going to be a bit of a risk factor for that reason, and he was dead right. And now, hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of News Nation's fact-driven coverage.